All right, so you ready to dive into some spooky stuff?
Always ready for a good ghost story. What are we looking at today?
Well, the nights are getting longer, it's getting darker earlier. Perfect time of year to dig into some real-life ghost stories.
Oh, I like where this is going.
Yeah, so we're taking a deep dive into a podcast called Haunting Whispers, True Ghost Stories and Paranormal Encounters.
Sounds promising. I'm always fascinated by those kinds of firsthand accounts.
That's
What makes people believe they've experienced something truly supernatural?
Right, and that's exactly what we're going to be exploring today. Like what makes these stories so compelling and what can they tell us about, the way we see the world and the things we're afraid of.
I'm all yours.
So the first story that really caught my attention is called The Uninvited Guest.
Okay, wait on me.
It's about this young woman, Sarah, who inherits her grandmother's house. And it's in this like tiny little town, kind of like the classic haunted house setup.
Yeah, I can already see the cobwebs and creaky floorboards.
Exactly. But it's the details that make this one so creepy.
What kind of details?
Well, she talks about these like flickering shadows
Mm.
and this constant feeling of being watched.
Ooh, yeah, that'll get under your skin. That sense of unease, like something's not right.
And then it gets even worse. Every single night, she starts hearing footsteps in the hallway outside her bedroom.
No way.
But when she gets up to check,
Yeah.
nothing. It's always empty.
So, imagine that, right? Lying in bed, knowing those footsteps are going to come, but there's never anyone there.
And the door even creaks open on its own. But the room is always empty.
Chills, man, chills. I've researched so many of these cases.
Yeah, you're like a resident expert on the paranormal.
Well, I wouldn't say expert, but I've definitely seen some patterns. What's interesting here is that a lot of these hauntings, especially in old family homes, they often have this, feeling of unfinished business or strong emotional ties to the place.
Like the house itself is holding on to the past.
Exactly. You've got generations of lives lived there, all those joys and sorrows. Some people believe that energy, those emotions, can linger.
Like an imprint.
Yeah.
So the question is, was it Sarah's grandmother trying to communicate? Or was it something else? Something maybe a little darker?
That's the thing with these stories, right? They leave you wondering, and we fill in those blanks with our own fears and interpretations.
Okay, so get ready for this next one. It's called The Midnight Visitor.
Hit me with it.
This one's about a guy named David. Super practical dude, doesn't believe in any of this ghost stuff, total skeptic.
Of course he is.
So he's staying at this historic hotel,
Mhm.
right? Super famous for being haunted. But David's just like, nah, it's all a bunch of hooey.
Famous last words, right? I always find it fascinating when a skeptic has one of these experiences. It shakes their whole worldview. They have to confront the fact that maybe, just maybe, there's more to reality than they thought.
Exactly. And that's precisely what happens to him.
Right.
He wakes up in the middle of the night, and there's this, like, misty figure of a woman at the foot of his bed. She's wearing this long flowing dress.
Oh, classic ghost look.
Right. But the creepy part is her eyes, just like staring at him, hollow and empty. And then she just disappears.
Poof, gone.
Gone. And, the hotel staff say it's the ghost of a bride who died there like 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Apparently she's like lost and wanders the halls. So many cultures have stories about lingering spirits. What do you think is going on there?
Well, it's really interesting to think about, right? I think these stories often come from our anxieties about death. The desire to connect with loved ones who've passed on, and maybe a need to make sense of things we just can't explain.
To find meaning in the chaos.
Exactly. They let us explore this idea that maybe consciousness doesn't just end when our bodies do.
Yeah.
That there's something beyond our everyday understanding.
Like a glimpse into another realm. So maybe these stories are really reflections of our deepest hopes and fears.
Exactly. They force us to confront the big mysteries, the questions humans have been asking ourselves forever.
This whole deep dive has really given me a lot to think about.
Me too.
These stories, if anything, they show us that we're always searching for meaning, for connection, for answers to the big questions about life and death. What do you think? Could there be a psychological or cultural explanation for all of this? It's something to ponder, as we wrap up our deep dive today.
Yeah, it's definitely a question worth exploring.
Thanks for joining me on this deep dive. Until next time.
Stay spooky.
Definitely.